Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at mounts. Now I had said in the past that I wouldn't be doing this, and the reason was that I didn't have a mount asset or animations. Obviously I can't use anything off the UE4 marketplace because this is a tutorial where you follow along with what I do, so obviously it has to be something that's free, and I didn't have anything. Luckily for you guys, GPFTH on our Discord, she was nice enough to make a unicorn for Serath to ride and some animations, and so those will be included. Those will be included in the. I'll have a link to it in the description where you can download that project, and we'll be moving those. We'll be moving those into our project. And so we're going to take a look at mounts. Let me start out by showing you what the completed project looks like. You can see what we're doing here. Okay. Let's make sure our settings are good, and we'll hit play. Okay, so we've got our Serath character. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And I have connected the M key to mount up. And there we go. And the person who requested this asked that we do a system where you could use up or down keys, plus or minus, to be able to change the speed. So there I'm hitting the minus key on the numpad. Now I'm hitting plus to go into a walk, plus again to go into a trot, and plus again to go into a gallop. And then I'm just controlling the direction here with the mouse. Slow back down. And then of course we can hit the M key to dismount. So there's no fancy animations of getting on and off, but what you could do to handle that, what I would do, is that I would choose a side of the horse that your character always gets on, and actually have a specific spot they have to start at to get on the horse. And then basically when they walk up to the horse, this is assuming the horse doesn't go with you and it's a horse that you get on, which is what the person who asked me to do this wants to be able to do, is that you walk up to a horse, not that you're carrying it with you. I don't know where you would carry it anyway. What I would do is that you would have to be within some distance of the horse. You would press your key to get on the horse. It would then, AI control would take over your character, move you to that preset point in relation to the horse on a certain side, and then that's when you could play your animation to be able to get up on the horse. And so that's how you can handle that. But for this one, we're just doing that somehow Serath has extra dimensional space and there's a horse in it. Okay, so that's the completed project. Now let's take a look at our project. So first thing we have to do, as always here, I've upgraded to 4221. And I've also added, we're going to need to use the set max walk speed in the OBS CMC. And because I did some refactoring on the character initialization, we're going to have to do a few things there too. So let's download this. I already have it. As we always do, we come in here, let's see, plugins, we'll delete our OWS plugin. Back out here, 427, plugins, I'm right-clicking, copy, and paste. Perfect. Now we're also going to need the unicorn. So we're going to go into there, we're going to grab this folder, unicorn under content. This will be in a zip file I'll put a link to in the description of the video. So we're going to copy that, and we're back to here, content. Now this is going to become a problem in the future, unfortunately, because I'm going to have to keep this up to date with the latest version. So that's going to be fun. This one is for 4.2.2, these assets. So if for some reason these assets don't get updated to 4.2.3 and you're trying to do this on 4.2.3, it's not going to work. So I'll have to try to keep that updated if I remember. If not, let me know. Okay, so that's there. So now we're going to launch our editor. It's too bad that UE4 assets are not easier to move from version to version, because sometimes they don't actually change, but unfortunately that's a downside to the binary format they're stored in. Can't wait till we have text-based. So let's make sure that unicorn folder loaded. It did. Cool. Now let's see if I can remember all the things we had to do. So let's start out by noticing the problems from just updating. So the problems that I noticed is, first of all, our character doesn't load. So that's the first one. Secondly, interesting, that was not working before, but that is working. And was our spell book. We didn't want T. I forget what our spellbook button is. Okay, so our character was not loading, and if you noticed in the changelog I said that we must swap out RPG initialization complete for OWS attribute initialization complete. I'm starting to do some redesign to make this a little bit easier for you guys to customize the initialization process and things you need to happen during the initialization process. So we're going to come in here and fix that one first. We're in our event graph, third-person character with abilities. It's not that one. RPG initialization complete. So on OWS attribute initialization complete. It was missing this set skeletal mesh for class. I think that's going to fix our character. Maybe that's what broke. Okay, well, the skill tree is not broken. Now I don't know if I want to add that extra code. So what I did in the other project when it was broken is that what was happening is down where we load the abilities here, it was hitting an error where the spellbook widget was not valid. And so we were hitting this spellbook widget invalid. But we're not hitting it here. I guess I'm not going to do it. If anybody has that error, let me know. Put this in here and see if it hits spellbook widget invalid. Again, it's a timing issue. It's bad what we did here. You don't want to use delays. Delays are bad. So what I did is a fix. I'm not going to do it here because it takes a while. But if anybody needs it, I actually go into the player controller, wait till the local spellbook widget loads on the client, and then send an event up to the server saying, hey, all our UI widgets loaded, and then I move this out of here down to some other event over here on the server after it's already loaded, rather than this 1 second delay. But it took a while. It'd probably take us 20 minutes to build, so I'm going to skip it so we can focus on the horse. If anybody has that issue, let me know, and we'll probably do that in a future video. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do here is we need to start setting up some stuff here. So we want to create a new skeletal mesh on this capsule component. So we're going to do add component, skeletal mesh. I'm going to call it mount. Okay. And we don't have an added BP yet for our skeletal mesh. Let's wait to set that. We also want to come down here and we want to add walk speeds as type float, not name, float, and change it to an array. And if I remember right, I added 4, 0 through 3, and I think we've got 125, 375, and 1,000. So that's our range, is up to 1,000 when it can go. And then I added another one here, current walk speed, to keep track locally. It's just an integer of non-type array. Okay, so I think at this point we're going to have to go and start working on the unicorn. Okay, so you've got this unicorn here, and you'll see it loaded weird. This is what happens when you use Blender. There's ways around it, but it's not easy. The good news, of course, is that once you choose an animation, it fixes it. So whatever. Not going to hurt anything. I am happy for this resource so that I can show you guys how to do a mount, which I had said in the past we were definitely not going to do. So we want to go to the skeleton, and we want to add a location for our rider, right? Because we're going to need to put Serath on top of this horse. And so we want to take a look at that. So what I did is I went to checking my other project real quick here to make sure I get this right. I went to spine 009. That seemed like a pretty good spot there in the middle of the spine to be able to do that. And so then I said add socket, right, okay, that's a socket. We got to click it, and we're going to change the name to rider location. And it took a little while to figure out exactly what worked good here, but these are my default values. So a Z, -31, everything's a little bit off because of the weird rotation, which is why it took a little while. And then a relative rotation, a 180 for the Y and a 180 for the Z. I think if you do the one without the other, then Serath is facing backwards, which is not ideal. So that takes care of that. And then we've got this AnimBP here that we're going to have to start working on. So first thing we need to do on the AnimBP, we need to add a speed value of type float. We'll try to do this quickly. There's a lot to get through here. And we are going to add is in air so we can support jumping. Okay, we've got to go over to our event graph. We got to get these values. So from here, we're going to do get velocity. This is going to look very similar in some ways to what we're doing in Serath, but this is for not Serath, this is for the unicorn. And we'll do set speed. And then here we're going to do get movement component is falling. Okay, that should get us all the data we need to power this. Again, it's getting that from the third person blueprint. And what we're going to want to do here, so we don't need this anymore. We're going to need our is in air. And we're going to do a blend pose by, this is, eventually you would do something a lot more complicated than this. And I'll show you when we get done what some of the extra things you'd have to do to actually make this work. But for this, we're just going to use the jump pose here, and then we're going to use our speed blend here. We're going to have to build a blend. So let's go back here, our animations, and we're going to do animation 1D blend space. Pick the unicorn skeleton, and we're going to call it unicorn speed blend. Open that up. We're going to say the goes 0 to 1,000. We're going to call it speed. We're going to do 8 divisions. And we're going to drop our gallop here at 1,000. I'm going to do our walk at 125, our trot at 375, and our idle at 0. And then I'm holding down left shift, moving between them to see how this works. It's not perfect. There's going to be some foot sliding. You can make it better. But it's somewhat okay. Okay, so we've got that. We come back here. We now can go to our asset browser and we can drag our blend in. Okay, now for our poor man's method. We're going to do this for a couple things. This is the poor man's animation prototyping method because I can't create animations. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to come into the gallop and we're going to find some spot where the legs are outstretched. Maybe something like that. Watch it again. Yeah, something like that. Okay. And we're going to say create animation from current pose. We'll save it in unicorn animations, and we're going to call it unicorn underscore idle. That's what the mesh is called. And then we're going to call it jump pose. Okay, and now we have a new animation called jump pose. We can come back over here, jump pose. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing for Serath riding on the saddle because, well, I guess there's no saddle, but riding on the back because I don't have a pose for that either. Okay, so now that's looking pretty good. Let's come back over to our mount here. And let's pick our unicorn. And we'll pick our unicorn and MVP. Come to our view. Okay. You're going to need to drop it by 90 and rotate it by -90. And that should get it pointed in the right direction. And then we want to start with it not visible. There we go. We don't want it to be visible to begin with in the game. Okay, so there's another value we're going to need here. But I'm going to add it. Take a look at this, double check this. I think, yeah, so there's a question as to whether we should have done our mounted in the third person blueprint that's just for the player or whether we actually wanted mounted for our AI as well. But I don't know, I'm doing a mix here. We may want to change this later, just depends. But I'm going to put the mounted in the R-base character. Maybe the mounting system would work different, but there's still the idea of mounted, potentially. And this mounted is going to be a rep notify, but it's actually going to skip the owner. Since we're going to use gameplay abilities to set it, we don't need to rep back to the owner, so we're going to skip the owner. And then we get this on rep mounted. But we need to get this up to the other level. We need to get it up to the third person character. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a function called handle mounted change. Okay? And then what we'll do is in onRep mounted, we're just going to call handle mounted change. And what that'll let us do is we don't actually have to define any of it here. We're going to be able to define that up at the higher level. And so I think that's all we need to do in our base character. Okay, so we've got that. I think we can start on our gameplay ability for mounted. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll up to abilities, and we're going to add a folder, call it mount. Okay, we're going to add a gameplay ability. Okay, gameplay ability is the base. Going forward, I'm going to try to use Epic's naming mechanism here, GA for gameplay ability. We're going to open that up. And this one's not going to be too complicated. Get avatar actor info. I'm also going to try to start using avatar actor instead of owner actor in the future, just because depending on what you do, you may want the owner to be something other than your character. Cast to third. Outfit spell. Okay. If it fails, we end the ability. We commit the ability. And we're going to need to do something else here that I haven't built yet. But then copying and pasting end ability is going to be over here. So there's going to be something else in between. But I did also want to make it that you can't mount in the air. Okay, I think you should have to be on the ground, even if you're pulling it out of extra dimensional space. We'll say you have to be on the ground. So I'm going to add a can activate ability, and what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves some space. I'm going to break this. We're going to pull out the avatar actor, cast to character. I'm going to make that pure. And then we're going to do get character movement and say is moving on ground. And then we'll just plug that into here. And now it'll only let us activate the ability if we're on the ground. Okay, so what we want to build here is toggle mounted. So we got to go back to our third person character with abilities, our event graph. We got to create a new custom event called toggle mounted. This is not a replicated event. It's going to get called just from the gameplay ability, and we can come over here and we can do toggle mounted. That should end our gameplay ability. But, you guys know what I forgot to do, right? Come into class defaults. Do this every time. Instance per actor, uncheck server respects remote ability to cancel. I also want to put some kind of cooldown in place here. So before we leave that, I'm going to create a new gameplay effect. GA, cooldown, mount, and I'm going to say has duration, I think I'm going to say like, I don't know, 5 seconds. That would probably cover some kind of animation of climbing on top of it if there was one, but there's not. But it'll give us basically a 5 second, I want to go back into that cooldown. And I want to have it grant the global cooldown. So that's just going to block everything for 5 seconds. That should be fine. Then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to pick the cooldown, and then I'm going to say this activation block tags can't do anything if you're not off the global cooldown. Okay, I think we're good there. We're going to come over here to our toggle mounted. And let's see what we do on toggle mounted. Oh. Okay, my bad. Come back here. Delete toggle mounted. Come back here. Delete toggle mounted. I made it a function toggle mounted. And all it's going to do is take mounted and toggle it, not set mounted. Okay, and now I'll go back to the game playability, and I'll drag off the new one. Okay, so now I've got that. We got our toggle mounted. So we need to override the handle mounted change. So we're going to come up to our override, and you're actually going to see it listed here, that one we created in the base class, handle mounted change, and it's going to pull out. It's going to pull out one for us here. It'll give us a little bit of room. And we're going to do a branch. And it's going to be based on get mounted. Okay, so if we are mounted, we want to start by taking our mount, not follow camera, our mount, set visibility, and we're not going to propagate. This is something that could cause you problems if you have child things under the mount, but it causes a problem later because of the structure I changed it. So I had to turn propagate to children off, whereas I had it on initially. And then we're going to take the mesh to Serath, and we're going to say attach to component. It's the second one. And we're basically going to move Serath's mesh onto the parent mount. Not sure about this weld simulated bodies or not. Again, eventually you'd want them moving with separate physics. I'm going to uncheck it. I don't think it matters here. For our socket location, we want rider location. Remember, that's the socket we added. So it's going to move Serath up to there. Okay. I'm going to build the rest of this part later because it's for a different system that you may or may not want. It's up to you. It just depends on how you want your movement scheme to work. So I'm going to copy this set visibility and mount, and then on false, we're going to hide it, and then we're going to grab the mesh again, attach to component, not that one, attach to component, second one, and we're going to reattach to the capsule component. And we don't need a socket name, we don't need relative, and I'm not going to weld simulated bodies. Okay, so that gets us there. There's more that we're going to add later, but we're not going to do that yet. Okay, so interesting. So we now got some toggling going on here. We've got our character moving. We should potentially, I think we need to give it a try. Okay, it's probably going to go super dark. Yeah, well, I don't like working in the dark. 3600, save, play. Okay, I'm going to scroll out to give us some room, and I'm going to hit M. Hit M. We missed a step. So, let's come here, project settings, input. So we're going to reuse, we've already reused usability 0 with our left shift for sprinting. We're going to use ability 9, and I'm going to bind the M. I wish you could type M key. I'm going to bind the M to it. While we're in here, we're also going to create 2 new ones we're going to use later. Hit plus twice. Increase riding speed. Decrease riding speed. I'll fix the spelling error. 2 spelling errors. And number pad plus will increase. Number pad minus will decrease. We're going to use those later. Okay, so now we could hit M again, and it's still not going to work because we haven't granted the ability. So we're going to come in here to our blueprint, and we're going to go to class defaults, and we're going to grant, see we got sprint in 0, we're going to put our GA mount in 9. And now we should actually see something happen. May not be, still not going to be what we want, but we're going to see something happen. So I'm going to scroll out with the mouse wheel, hit the M key, hit the M key. Okay, still nothing. So at this point, what I'll usually do is I want to make sure that it's actually activating. So I'll go in here, go to the mount. Right at the start here, I'll say print string mount. I don't see any other issues there. Let's see if we get that far. Ah, very nice. Ran on client and server. Sweet. Okay, so we got to our toggle mounted. We know it is a third-person character with ability. It's not going to hit the send ability. We could put a print string there in case that was an issue. It's going to commit. It's going to get to toggle mounted. And it's going to do a notify here. Very nice. And that should get us to here. Handle mounted change. Let's see if we get that far. No. That is where we fail. Okay. So let's take a look at what we've got. We're not getting the handle mounted change. Now we're probably going to have to go back into the RBase character. See what I missed. Oh, handle mounted change shouldn't call handle mounted change. That would be a bit of a problem. That should do nothing. I was in something different than I thought I was. On rep mounted should handle mounted change. Okay. You guys may have noticed that and been yelling at the screen. That's usually what I do when I'm watching videos where people screw up. Okay. So now let's see if it gets that far. Wow, look at that. Okay, so we got some problems. Serath's still kind of walking. Our thing goes side to side. And yeah, there's some problems. But there we go. Yeah, I couldn't reactivate it again right away because it's got a 5-second cooldown. I was like, what's going on there? Just gotta wait our 5 seconds. Okay. So the first thing I see is obviously Serath needs some work. She shouldn't keep walking. So, it's time for more poor man's animations. So we're going to go find Serath. Here goes Serath. And we're going to find her mesh. Right here. Okay. And what we're going to do, we're going to go into skeleton. And we're going to start rearranging how her pose, so we can get a pose here. So I'm going to go down to thighs. We'll see if I can remember what I did. We'll try 50. It may not have been that far. Let's see what... It did not seem to be... There we go. I think that was 50. I feel like the other was probably 30. I think that's 50. That might not be too bad. And then we'll move down to the calves. This calf. No, not that. And we pull that back. I think that's close. We'll adjust it later if it's not, but I think that's close. And then I think I went to back to the spine, grabbed the clavicle. I think I did about 20 forward there. The other right clavicle, 20 forward there. And then I think I went to upper arms. Hold them in a little bit. And then let's bend some elbows on the lower arms. And the other lower arm. This is what you do when you're prototyping. Okay. It's not exactly holding reins, but ouch, that looks like it hurts. Yeah, she really shouldn't stab herself, but anyway, you can play around with that more. I'm going to go to create asset, create animation, current pose. Save it in animations. I'm going to call it Serath riding pose. There we go. So now I'm going to go into Serath's animation blueprint, and we need to add a new variable for mounted, and we also have to add one. Let me go take a look. I forgot what I called this. We need to add one because what ends up happening is it still keeps trying to solve the feat while she's riding. And so we want to stop solving the IK. This could be useful for other other situations too. I called it enable IK. So we'll have enable IK. Okay, so let's start off by getting our values. I don't like asterisks. Okay, so we're gonna go to our event graph, and the reason that one of the reasons I put the mounted in the base character was just because it makes this easier. So we'll have set mounted, set enable IK, and it's gonna come from here, where we get mounted, we set it into here, and then we're gonna do a not, because it's actually the opposite for the enabling the foot IK. We want to enable it when we're not mounted. Okay, and then I hit C, mounted, and make it look a little better. Okay, so that should get us our data. Now it's time to use the data. So, first thing we want to do is start up at the top. We've got this ground locomotion, and we've got this jump locomotion, which uses the ground locomotion. So what we want to do is we want to go in here and say blend poses by bool. And the mounted, oh, we don't have the mounted. Move this down. There's the false. Mounted goes here. And we need a new state machine. Well, we're creating a new one. We probably don't need one, but oops. I think we're only going to put one thing in it. Mounted locomotion. This will give you room to work on it more. You guys can work on improving this. And inside that mounted locomotion, yeah, to begin with, all we're going to do is add a state. It's going to be idle. And inside that idle, we're just playing riding pose. See, eventually you would have some animations for the riding so that Serath doesn't just say stay stiff in one place. Okay, so that should handle that. And then now we have to handle the IK. So we're going to come here after the use full body, and we're going to say cache, and we're going to call this pre-IK. Room here, and this one is going to be use cached pose pre-IK. Nope, not that one. Use cached pose pre-IK. But then we're going to come to the end here, and we're going to do another blend pose by bool. And this one's going to go into the true. Enable IK is going to go here. So we want to do that when it's true, but then when we don't, we want just the pre-IK to go in as false. Okay. So now that we have done that, I believe that Serath might look a little bit better. Okay, we did go too far on the legs, but whatever. You guys can adjust those. It wasn't 50, it was probably 30 or 40 on the thighs. But now it looks a little bit better here. And we actually see the jumping's working. Not that it looks great, but it is working. So now we have a I gotta fix that. I don't want my horse to step sideways when I have no sideways stepping animation. So we're going to come back here to our input graph. And what we're going to do is we're going to come into here. And we want to add another branch. So it's weird how this branch... Yeah, it just there's not enough room here. So I'm going to grab these. I'm going to slide them over here to give us a little more room. And move this. Oh, that one. We're going to add another branch. Copying and pasting. And we're going to say get mounted. And I like to always use the true side. I find it makes things a little bit easier to read. We could have drug from false, which is what I did in the prototype project, but I'm going to do it right here. And now what should happen is, because this was our movement input for moving left and right, while we're mounted, so Serath can still move left and right. While we're mounted, left and right don't do anything. Perfect. Okay, you know, I'm going to do, there's going to be another part here where I'm going to do the movement that I was asked to do for this video by the person who made the asset. But I'm actually going to split that into a second video because this one's kind of getting long. So we've got a mount here, but in the next video, which I'm going to record right after this, we're going to have where it basically keeps walking. This is also this next video is going to be useful for you if you want some kind of, you know, auto walk feature. A lot of MMOs have that, but we're going to have it keep walking, and we're going to use plus minus keys to move it up and down. But I'm going to do that on a separate video. So I'll be right back.